By October 1940, one fact was beyond dispute in every capital in Europe. Small nations fell. That was not pessimism. That was the observable, documented mathematical reality of modern warfare as the world understood it in the autumn of 1940. Poland had fallen in 35 days, Denmark in 6 hours, Norway in 2 months, the Netherlands in 5 days, Belgium in 18. France, with the Maginot Line, with a military widely considered the strongest in Western Europe, with a tradition stretching back centuries, had collapsed in 46 days. The pattern was clear. The formula was established. Modern mechanized armies, properly equipped and properly led, crushed whatever stood in front of them. Winston Churchill understood this better than almost anyone alive. He had watched it happen from Downing Street. He had read the intelligence reports. He had seen the maps change week by week as the German advance swept across the continent. He had stood in the House of Commons and told the British people that he had nothing to offer them but blood, toil, tears, and sweat, because he understood exactly what Britain was facing and refused to pretend otherwise. He was not a man given to false optimism. He was a man who had spent his entire life studying war, who had fought in it, written about it, analyzed it, with the obsessive attention of someone who understood that the difference between victory and defeat was often the difference between seeing clearly and seeing what you wanted to see. And what Churchill saw in October 1940, when Mussolini's Italy invaded Greece, was exactly what every other informed observer saw: a formality. Italy had a significant numerical advantage in aircraft, roughly 3 times Greece's operational fighters. Modern tanks, an army of millions. Greece had mountains, mules, outdated rifles, and approximately 7.3 million people who had not asked to be at war. Churchill's assessment of Greek survival prospects was not optimistic. He was about to be proven wrong in a way that would change not just his assessment of Greece, but the words that history would attach to his name forever. To understand what it took for Churchill's name to become permanently linked to the most famous tribute to Greek courage in history, you have to understand who Churchill was when the Greek campaign began. Winston Churchill, in October 1940, was 65 years old. He had been Prime Minister for exactly 5 months. He had inherited a war that Britain was losing, a military that had been evacuated from Dunkirk with most of its equipment left on the beaches, and a political establishment that was still debating whether negotiating with Hitler was preferable to fighting him. He had chosen to fight. That choice, in May and June of 1940, was not as obvious as it appears in retrospect. The arguments for negotiation were not made by cowards. They were made by serious men who looked at the military situation and concluded that continuing the war was a path to national destruction. Lord Halifax, Neville Chamberlain, men who had served their country and genuinely believed that a negotiated peace preserved more of what Britain valued than a war it could not win. Churchill rejected them. He did it not because he was certain Britain would win. He was not certain of this at all, but because he believed that some things were worth fighting for, even when the mathematics said you would lose. That belief, that courage and will, could change what mathematics said was inevitable, is the key to understanding why Greece affected him the way it did. Because when Italy invaded Greece on October 28, 1940, and Greece refused to accept the outcome that mathematics predicted, when Greek infantry stopped the Italian advance in the mountains of Epirus and then actually pushed back into Albanian territory, Churchill saw something he recognized. He saw a people doing what he had told his own people they had to do, refusing to accept what the numbers said. Greece in October 1940 was not a country Churchill knew intimately. His focus was on Britain's survival, on the Atlantic, on the Middle East, on the diplomatic campaign to bring America into the war. Greece was a peripheral concern, a small country in southeastern Europe whose fate mattered primarily because of its position relative to the Mediterranean. He did not expect Greece to fight effectively. He did not expect what happened next. The Greek army, commanded by General Alexandros Papagos, stopped the Italian invasion in its tracks within 2 weeks, not slowed it, stopped it, then counterattacked, then pushed 30 miles into Albania, then held those positions through a winter that military planners had classified as impossible for offensive operations. Churchill watched this from Downing Street, with the specific attention of a man who understands military operations and cannot quite believe what he is seeing. He began sending messages to Athens. November 1940, London. The reports reaching Churchill from the Greek front are not what anyone predicted. The Italian force that crossed into Greece on October 28th, 6 divisions, approximately 163 tanks, with the absolute certainty of commanders who had been promised 2 weeks, has been stopped. Not by modern weapons, not by armored counterattacks, by Greek infantry in the mountains of Epirus, fighting in terrain that Italian operational planning had marked as unsuitable for serious defense, using tactics that reflected a knowledge of the ground so intimate it neutralized every Italian material advantage. Churchill reads the reports. He reads them again. He begins sending telegrams to Athens that reflect the specific excitement of a man who has been watching military disasters for months and is suddenly watching something else entirely. Churchill communicates with the Greek government, expressing British admiration and support. The correspondence during this period is warm, personal, in a way that official diplomatic communication rarely is. He is watching a small country do something he was not certain was possible: hold its ground against a modern European military power and then take the fight to them. The Greek counteroffensive continues. Korchi falls to Greek forces on November 22nd. Greek troops are 30 miles inside Albanian territory by December. The Italian army that was supposed to conquer Greece in 2 weeks is fighting to prevent its own collapse. Churchill follows every development. He is receiving intelligence from multiple sources: British military observers with the Greek forces, signals intelligence, diplomatic reporting from Athens. The picture that assembles from these sources is consistent. The Greeks are fighting with an effectiveness that no assessment had predicted. The Italian army is not simply losing. It is being humiliated by an opponent it openly mocked before the campaign began. By December 1940, Churchill's correspondence about Greece has shifted from cautious observation to something approaching awe. He begins advocating within his own government for more British support to Greece: aircraft, supplies, eventually troops. Not only because British strategic interests require it, though they do, but because Churchill has decided that what the Greeks are doing deserves support in a way that goes beyond strategic calculation. He has decided they deserve it. The debate within the British government about how much to commit to Greece is one of the most consequential of the entire war. Churchill pushes for more. His military advisors push back. Resources committed to Greece are resources not available for North Africa. The debate is genuine, and the arguments on both sides are serious. Churchill's position throughout is shaped by something his military advisors do not fully weight in their calculations: his belief that the Greeks have earned whatever Britain can give them. January 1941. The Italian spring offensive is being prepared. Mussolini, humiliated by 5 months of failure, has sacked 3 generals, Visconti Prasca, Badoglio, and Soddu, and is now committing everything he has to a massive attack designed to break the Greek line. Churchill knows the offensive is coming. He watches Greek forces dig in and prepare to receive it. On March 9th, 1941, Mussolini himself travels to the Albanian front to watch his army attack. Artillery fires 100,000 shells in 2 hours to open the offensive. 50,000 Italian soldiers advance against 28,000 Greeks along a 20-mile front. The Greeks hold. Not just hold, they counterattack. On the 5th day of the offensive, a Greek aircraft bombs and strafes the observation post where Mussolini is watching. The Italian dictator is forced to take cover. Mussolini flies home after 11 days, disgusted. The offensive has produced approximately 12,000 Italian casualties and 0 territorial gains. Churchill follows all of this. And then in April 1941, everything changes. Germany intervenes. Operation Marita begins on April 6, 1941. The German 12th Army crosses into Greece from Bulgaria. It is a completely different scale of force from what Greece has been facing. Not Italian divisions struggling in the mountains, German armor moving with the speed and coordination that had destroyed France in 46 days. The Greek army, which has been fighting Italy for 5 months on the Albanian front, now faces a second front in the north, with forces that are exhausted, stretched thin, and facing an enemy that has conquered the rest of Europe. Churchill has sent British forces to Greece, a decision that his military advisers considered strategically questionable, and that he committed to partly because he believed Britain owed it to a country that had been fighting alone for 5 months. The British and Greek forces fight. They cannot hold. The German advance is too fast, too powerful, too coordinated. Greece falls in April 1941. Churchill watches this from London. He watches the country that had done something he had not believed possible, stopped Italy cold, pushed 30 miles into Albania, held through a winter, repulsed a major spring offensive, fall to the German military machine. And what the world says about it, what gets written in newspapers, what gets spoken in parliaments, what circulates through the Allied world in the spring and summer of 1941, reflects the specific weight of watching something extraordinary be overwhelmed, not by its own failure, but by a force of a completely different magnitude. In April 1941, as Greece is falling, the words appear. The Greek diplomat Demetrios Kaklamanos writes in the Manchester Guardian, one of Britain's most respected newspapers, capturing in a single sentence what the Allied world is feeling about what Greece has done. He writes, "It was rightly said that people will not say any more that the Greeks fight like heroes, but heroes fight like Greeks." The words are extraordinary. They use the structure of language itself to make their point, taking the highest compliment available and inverting it, saying that the standard of heroism is no longer an abstract ideal, but a specific people in a specific moment. The words are so perfectly suited to the moment, so precisely calibrated to what the world is feeling, so exactly the kind of thing that the greatest orator of the age might say. And so they begin their journey toward the name that history would attach to them. Churchill is delivering speeches about Greece during this period that are fully documented and fully verified. He is saying things about Greek courage in the House of Commons and in correspondence that leave no doubt about his admiration. He is the most prominent voice in the Allied world, expressing what everyone is feeling. Whether he said those specific 8 words, hence we will not say that Greeks fight like heroes, but that heroes fight like Greeks, is something that historians and Churchill scholars have been unable to definitively confirm from primary sources. No speech, no letter, no document in the Churchill archives has been found containing those exact words in his hand. What is certain is this: the words captured something true, something that needed to be said, something that reflected the genuine admiration Churchill expressed in every verified statement he made about Greece during this period, and something so perfectly aligned with how the world understood his feelings that his name became permanently attached to them. Whether Churchill coined them or whether history gave them to him because no other name fit as well, those 8 words became his in the memory of the world. And the Greeks who earned them, who fought in the snow of the Pindus, who drove captured Italian tanks back into Albania, who held against everything the Italian army threw at them, they are the people those words describe. That is what it took. Most people know the quote. They don't know what Greece had to do to earn it. They don't know about the 5 months in the Albanian mountains, the 3 Italian generals fired, the 50,000 soldiers stopped by 28,000, the dictator who flew home disgusted. They don't know what Churchill saw from Downing Street that turned his cautious diplomatic support into something that history would remember as the highest tribute one civilization ever paid another at war. If you think that story deserves to be told properly, subscribe. We find the stories behind the stories. That's all we do. The consequences of what Greece did, and of the words that history attached to Churchill's admiration for it, extend in every direction. The first consequence is strategic and documented. Greece's resistance contributed to a delay in Operation Barbarossa, the German invasion of the Soviet Union. Germany had initially targeted May 15, 1941, for the completion of preparations. The actual invasion began on June 22, approximately 5.5 weeks later. While historians debate the primary causes of this delay, with logistical challenges and the spring thaw also playing significant roles, the diversion of German forces to the Balkans was a contributing factor. Those weeks matter. When German forces reached the outskirts of Moscow in December 1941 and found the ground frozen and Soviet resistance stiffening with fresh Siberian divisions, the question of those missing weeks haunts the historical analysis of why Barbarossa failed to achieve its objectives before winter. The second consequence is political and global. The words that history attached to Churchill's name, "Heroes fight like Greeks," are heard around the world in 1941. They are heard in the United States, where Roosevelt is navigating the political landscape of a country that has not yet entered the war. They are heard in occupied Europe, where resistance movements are trying to believe that resistance is possible. The message those words carry is not just about Greece. It is about the possibility of resistance itself. If a country of 7.3 million people with mules and outdated rifles can stop a modern Axis military power, what does that say about what is possible? It says that the mathematics are not always right. It says that will and courage can change what the numbers predict. That message is one of the most powerful statements of Allied resolve produced in the entire first 2 years of the war. The third consequence is historical. Greece's resistance in 1940 to 1941 was confirmed by historians as the first Axis setback of the entire war. It shattered the myth of Axis invincibility. It proved to the watching world that the advance could be stopped. Churchill understood this immediately. Greece had not just held Italy. Greece had disrupted the Axis narrative of inevitable victory, and in doing so, It had given the entire Allied world something it desperately needed in the darkest period of the war. Proof that resistance was possible. The words that history has given to Churchill, hence we will not say that Greeks fight like heroes, but that heroes fight like Greeks, are taught in Greek schools. They are displayed on monuments. They are quoted in speeches on October 28th, the anniversary of Metaxas's rejection of the Italian ultimatum. Whether Churchill coined them in the heat of the moment, or whether they found their permanent home in his name because no other name fit as well, they captured something true. They captured what Churchill genuinely felt, what he expressed in verified correspondence and verified speeches throughout the Greek campaign, what the entire Allied world felt, watching a country of 7.3 million people hold a modern military power for 5 months and then face Germany without flinching. Churchill did not give praise easily. He was not a man who distributed the language of heroism without cause. He had watched too much war, read too much history, seen too many claims of courage collapse under pressure. When the words heroes, fight like Greeks attached themselves to his name, when history decided that these were the words that best expressed what Churchill and his generation felt about Greece, they stuck because they were true to everything he actually said and felt and wrote. The Italian generals who invaded Greece with 2 weeks of supplies and the certainty of quick victory. The 3 commanders Mussolini fired in 3 months. The 50,000 soldiers who advanced behind 100,000 shells and were stopped by 28,000 Greeks. The dictator who flew home, disgusted, after 11 days at the front. They are the context in which those words exist, and the Greek soldiers who made them necessary, who fought in the snow of the Windus, who drove captured Italian tanks back into Albania, who held against everything the Italian army threw at them. They are the people those words describe, not people who fight like heroes, the people that heroes are compared to. If this story is still in your head right now, if you're still thinking about it, that like button is the right response. Hit it. This channel carries these stories carefully, every fact verified, every name checked, every detail earned. If that standard matters to you, subscribe and help us maintain it. Where are you watching from? Drop your country below. And if this story connects to your family's history, any family, any country, tell us. These moments belong to everyone. Thank you for carrying the weight of what those soldiers earned forward. The words found their home in Churchill's name. The Greeks made them true. The least we can do is remember both.